Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And thank you to Flora and Fauna for organising this. I'm so excited to be presenting today a recipe from my cookbook, which is Eat More Raw, and that's available on the Flora and Fauna website. And I'm going to be sharing one of my favourite recipes from here is the Chocolate Ganache Tart. I love this recipe because firstly, it's a no bake recipe. It's all raw. We use superfood ingredients in here. It's gluten-free, it's dairy-free, and it's most importantly, tastes really good. And it's so versatile that we can make variations to it to make it more Christmassy as well. So it's the perfect dessert to have this festive season on your table. So I'm going to be sharing how easy it is to actually make this. You literally whip it up so quickly, and the beauty of it is it's fail proof. We're not using an oven, so nothing can go wrong, and it's just so versatile. So we can actually add different variations to it, different flavors to it. The consistency is a chocolate ganache-like consistency, so it's really silky, smooth. And what we can do with the filling is add variations to it, such as berries. I love chocolate raspberry, so we can add fresh raspberries to the filling. We can also add cherries, make it like a chocolate cherry, chocolate coffee, like a mocha flavored one, and then topped off with a whipped cream. It's kind of like a cappuccino style cake, which is really nice. For Christmas kind of flavors, mint works really well. So we can use like an essential oil, mint oil, or even fresh mint leaves and blend that up in the filling. We can also use something like a mince, kind of a fruit mince. So a variation of some dried fruits, whether that be some like sultanas, some currants, some goji berries, some cranberries, and macerate them in a little bit of orange juice and if you like some brandy, so it's got that kind of Christmas pudding-like flavor, that Christmas kind of like mince-like flavor, and we can add that to the filling. We can add spices to it, so like a gingerbread spice mix. Variations are endless, and making it Christmassy is really easy. I'm going to show you just the simple version, the chocolate version today, because I feel like that's definitely a go-to, and it's overall, I guess everyone's easy to please with just plain chocolate. But depending upon what flavor variations you like, the options are endless. And that's what I love about this dessert, is that you can just add so many different variations, and it can be unique and different each time. So I'm going to get started with the base. So there's two parts to it. So we've got the base, which is a crust that we're going to make, and I'm going to use my food processor here for that. And then the filling is made separately as well. So to start with, the ingredients are quite simple, and I'm sure that most people would have these in your pantry. So I'm going to get started with, you don't need to worry about writing down the recipe if you don't catch all the ingredients. We will be emailing this recipe out as well. But to start with, we've got, so this is for the crust. We've got 1 1/4 cups of desiccated coconut. So everything's basically going to go into my food processor here. I've got 3/4 cup of activated buckwheat. You can buy the buckwheat already activated, which is amazing. And I love sourcing all my ingredients at the bulk food stores, because you can just simply buy what you need and there's no wastage. So there's 3/4 cup of activated buckwheat, or buckinis. That's going to go in there. And if you feel adventurous, you can actually sprout your own. And there is instructions in the book about sprouting your own as well. I'm using some raw cacao powder. So there is 1/4 cup of raw cacao powder here. I've got some cacao nibs. So that's 2 tablespoons of cacao nibs. And what's going to bring this crust all together is some medjool dates. So I have some medjool dates here. So you want to make sure that you get rid of the like little flower stalk that's on top of the date, and there's also a pit inside, and you need to get rid of that pit. So you want to make sure that they all de-pitted. If you don't have the medjool dates, this is my preference because they're really juicy and really sticky and moist, and they just really enhance the texture of the crust. If you can't get a hold of medjool dates, any regular dates are fine, and you can simply just soak them in a little bit of warm water for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that will make them, rehydrate them and make them a little bit moister so they can still be used. And you always want to make sure that you check the inside of the date. There are quite often times where I have found a black date, like black powder inside, and it's just like a bad date, and you really just don't really want to have that in your dessert. So make sure you check them first. So that's all the dry ingredients. And then I have 2 tablespoons of melted coconut oil and 1 tablespoon of water. We may need to add a little bit more water as we go along, but we'll check the consistency once I've blended that. So I'm just going to pour that in for now, and simply just going to blend this now. All right, so after that's blended for about a minute, we want to check the consistency of this. So we're looking for a consistency that's going to mold together. And we probably will need to adjust this. So as you can see right here, it's a little bit dry, so it hasn't quite formed a nice kind of moist crust. So I'm going to actually add a little bit of water to this. So the water is always a little bit variable, and there's always a different I guess variance to your dates. If they're not super moist, then you may need that extra bit of water, and the instructions are actually listed about that in the recipe, so you don't forget. So some water, I had some here. So I'll probably just have another tablespoon of water in there and blend it up again. Oh. All right, so I'm just going to stop that and check that again. So it's looking better, and as I don't know if you can see that, hopefully you can. It's when I press it together, it does stick together, but it's just still slightly dry. So I'm just going to add 1 more tablespoon of this. It just helps it if it's a little bit moister, and it won't crumble when you cut it. So we could get away with this, but I just feel it could be a little bit moister. So just 1 more tablespoon of water. Will just be perfect. All right, I think that's good now. So you can see it combines together so much nicer. And so this is just going to be perfect for the crust. So I have for the crust, you can use a mold that you already have. The size that works best for this is a 9-inch form. This is a tart case that has a removable bottom. It just makes it easier when you're demolding the cake and presenting it. It just comes out so easy. If you just have like a springform tart tin, that's not like a fluted one, that works well as well. So you can use whatever you have. And what we're going to do, we don't even need to grease this pan, which makes it just so easy. It doesn't stick to it, which is just magic. So I'm just going to pour that into my crust, my tin here, my crust, and it smells really delicious. It's a shame that Zoom, you can't get the essence of the cooking so much with smells, but I can tell you it does smell really good. So I'm just gonna angle that down so you can see what I've done. So I've basically just poured that in and just created an even layer here in my tin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right around it and press it in so that it all sticks together. So I'm going around from one edge using my forefinger to make an angle at the edge, so that at the edge of the tart we have like a 90-degree angle. So I'm just pressing that in, and then with my thumb I'm just smoothing out that top part there so that it's nice and straight. And this just gives you a perfect crust every time. And it's fairly quick and easy to do. And the other thing I love about this is that there's no rolling. We don't have to roll the tart case with a rolling pin and worry about baking it and it cracking. When you bake tarts, they quite often break. So there's none of that mess involved, which is just amazing. So I've gone around all the edges there, and it's as straight as possible. And now for the center part, I'm just going to press that down and make sure that's all compressed and nice and even. So super quick, super easy, no baking involved, no rolling pins, no mess. So that's that base right there. Now for the filling, our filling is just as easy, if not probably a little bit easier. So I've got all my ingredients ready for the filling. And for this, I will use my blender. So I've got a Vitamix here that I'm going to use. So the ingredients for the filling are cashews. So cashews are our base for this. They're going to give us a really nice creamy consistency without using any dairy or any butter. So I have soaked these. I soaked these this morning. So I've got 1 2/3 of a cup of cashews. And when we soak the cashews, it just makes them a lot easier to blend. And the consistency becomes a little bit creamier as well. So that's 1 2/3 of a cup of cashews. So they were soaked for about 4 hours, and I have rinsed them, and I'm going to use the rinsed soaked cashews for this. So they're going to go in my blender. I'm then using some raw cacao powder. I've got 1/3 of a cup of raw cacao powder. I'm using a sweetener for this. I'm using some coconut nectar. If you don't have coconut nectar, you can use maple syrup, you can use brown rice syrup, whichever sweetener you prefer. I really like the coconut nectar because it just provides a really nice balance in flavors in this, in the chocolate. But any sweetener, a liquid sweetener works well. Maple works really nice as well. What else do we need to add to this? We're going to add some plant-based milk. So I've got some coconut milk here. So that's 2/3 of a cup of coconut milk. And I always add a pinch of salt to my desserts. It sounds a little bit strange, but the salt, and I've used this Celtic salt, which is really high in minerals. So the Celtic salt actually adds a balance of flavors to the dessert. Sounds strange adding salt to dessert, but it just really helps lift the flavors and it makes such a difference. And a pinch is all you need. So I've added a pinch of salt to that. I'm going to add a couple of drops of vanilla essence as well. And here, if you wanted to vary it, you could vary the flavors. So for instance, if you wanted to add a gingerbread spice mix to it, you could add it here. Some mint essential oil if you wanted to make a mint tart. If you wanted to make a Jaffa style tart, I would sub the liquid plant-based milk for orange, and that would give it like a nice orange flavor, making it like a Jaffa style. If you wanted to do the mocha style tart, you would sub the milk for coffee. So you would use coffee instead of the milk. And there are some of the variations you would use, and you could do that before you started blending. So I'm simply just going to blend this mix, and right towards the end, once it's all nice and creamy, I'm going to add my final ingredient, which is the coconut oil. So I have here 1/2 cup of melted coconut oil, and the coconut oil is actually it acts like a butter because it's what's going to set the dessert to make it nice and firm and give it that ganache style texture. So that's what we're going to add right at the end. But first I'm going to blend this. So I'm just going to use my plunger here. And you always want to start your blender on low so it doesn't jump up and go everywhere. So that's on low, just want to double check. It's going to make a little bit of noise. All right, so we want to just check the consistency of it. Looks really good, smells delicious. So you can see that there. It's what you're looking for is like a nice smooth consistency. I always just test it on the back of my hand, and it's nice and smooth. There's no cashew lumps in there. And so that's good now for us to add the coconut oil. And at this point as well, you can check for flavor, for sweetness. You may want to add extra sweetness if you prefer your desserts a bit sweeter. And any other adjustments, you would make them now before you add the coconut oil. So I've got my coconut oil. So that was 1/2 cup of melted coconut oil. And if you just want to give it a bit of a scrape around the edges as well, make sure everything gets incorporated in there nicely. And then we do a final blend, and this shouldn't take too long. We just blend it so it all comes together and it's emulsified. The coconut oil helps with the emulsification. And we don't want to over blend the coconut oil either, as it becomes really coconutty. more actually. Just combine it better. All right, so that's a really nice, silky, smooth consistency. It's all been incorporated in really nicely. You can't see any more of the oil. It's all been emulsified and it's really nice and smooth. So that's going to go straight into the tart now. So I'm just going to pour that right in here. If you want to use fresh berries, I would add them like right here in the base. So raspberries work really, really nicely. Chocolate raspberries, just such a nice classic combination. Cherries work really well, and we're so fortunate here in Australia. We've got the berry season and all the summer fruits coming, so it's just perfect opportunity to utilize those when you can. So you're just going to scrape that mixture out. All right, and I'm just going to level this out so you can just tap it a little bit to make it nice and even. Or if you do have one of these beautiful palette knives, it's one of my favorite pastry tools. You can just smooth it out a little bit. It doesn't need too much because we're going to decorate this anyway. So just like that. And it's literally, I've made this in less than half an hour and I've been chatting to you guys all along. Granted, my ingredients were all ready, but it's super quick and easy. And you can see that there. You would want to set this before you decorate it. So you could place it into your fridge overnight. If you're in a hurry, you can place it into your freezer and it freezes pretty quickly. 3 to 4 hours usually is the length of time it takes to freeze and set nice and firm. So if you were in a hurry and you made it the day that you needed it, you can freeze it. And then once it's frozen, then you can decorate it, and that's the fun part. So you can use, depending upon what you have in the filling, as to like what you would like to use on top. Some of my favorite things to top it off with is obviously some fresh berries, as the photo in the book was just decorated with some fresh berries and some cherries. So that's always a nice classic kind of decoration. I'll just close that off. So just classic berries is good. There's a chocolate sauce recipe that's in here that works really nicely as a chocolate topping, and it becomes really nice and gooey. So like a nice gooey kind of chocolate topping on top of there. Some coconut whipped cream works really well. Freeze-dried berries. You could do some chocolate shavings, a dusting of cacao powder. Really, the options for decorating are endless, and that's where you can add your unique creative element to it. So I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I hope that you can make this and enjoy this for the festive season. If anyone has any questions, we have a little bit of time. If you want to ask me any questions.
Thank you so much for that, Julie. Yeah, it was actually really quick recipe.
I know.
I love it.
It is super quick. It's surprising.
Yeah.
Probably just takes longer setting. That's the hard part, just waiting. We're just gonna wait.
All right, I've got some questions. What are your top tips for someone starting their raw plant-based journey?
That's a great question. So I always suggest easing into it slowly. So adding like a green smoothie, like a smoothie for, I feel breakfast would be the easiest the easiest to kind of get more raw meals in, because it's just so, particularly in summertime, it's just super easy to just eat raw for breakfast. We can have smoothie bowls, smoothies, cold pressed juices, there's granolas. There's some really great suggestions in the book with breakfast ideas. Simply having fruit for breakfast, you know, that's really nourishing and such a great start to the day as well. Having like a really great variety of fruits and vegetables, and eating in season, I feel, is always really important to keep inspired as well. Raw food is not just having salads, although I love a good salad. There are so many creative recipes that you can make that don't necessarily take a long time. It's just a different way of thinking of preparing food. And I would just show you a few examples. Like, the book has just some amazing suggestions for quick, easy meals that like you can whip up or meal prep in advance. Like these nori rolls here are made with a tuna-like pate with sunflower seeds and almonds, and they taste delicious, and that's something that you can meal prep in advance. Something else that's really easy that I really love is a zucchini pasta. So I always love having zucchini pasta, and now that basil's coming into season, making a really nice pesto. So there's so many different meals you can have, and variety is key as well. There's this stono fry here in the book. It's basically like a stir fry that's been marinated, and it's got a cooked-like texture, and the secret is in the marinade. So having a really nice marinade that almost kind of like cooks the vegetables and changes the cellulose structure, making them appear as they have been cooked, is the key as well. So that the food that you're eating isn't just one kind of texture, that you've got different textures that are similar to cooked food. And that's what I kind of try to replicate with raw food, is making it kind of similar to cooked food. And we definitely never miss out with raw food because there's so much endless variety. And yeah, I love just incorporating seasonal fruits and vegetables as well.
Thanks for that, Julie. And
Okay.
Matthew asked, does this recipe scale easily if you've got a bigger or smaller pan?
Definitely, yes. So I've used a 9-inch pan. If you wanted to use a smaller one, you could use a smaller one and simply cut the recipe in half. If you wanted to use a bigger pan, for instance, like a 12-inch or a 10-inch, you can simply times the recipe by 1.5, and that would be suitable for a bigger tin. And if you have extra filling, it's not going to go to waste. You can simply even just pour it into like a souffle dish or a little bowl and have it like a chocolate kind of mousse with a spoon. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to all go into the tart tin, so you don't need to worry about wasting it.
All right, thank you for that, Julie. I think we'll end our session now. If anyone has missed it, we'll be uploading this to YouTube. And yeah, thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I hope to see people's remakes of this over the Christmas festive period.
Definitely. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.